The third in the big three trilogy of psychotic symptoms is, for many people, the most difficult to understand. Unlike delusions, which are all about what we think, thought disorders are about how we think. It's thought process, not thought content. There are two main ways to identify thought disorders. Both rely upon the way that we represent thoughts symbolically to others. They are language, either written or spoken, and imagery. Let me explain. Language is abstract. Words represent concepts or things without actually being them. For example, the word chair, when spoken, is a sound, not actually something you can sit on. The same is true of the written word. As Robin Skinner once said, the menu is not the meal. Another way to think of this, perhaps more concerned with images rather than words, come from neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. The map is not the territory. We use words and pictures to communicate our thoughts and intentions to others. It's rather like translating between one language and another. The language of our thoughts needs to be translated into a form that other people can understand and make sense of. That's what we do when we describe in words the memory of a past event we witnessed or a future holiday. We translate our mental imagery into words, and then the other person, the listener, can translate our words back into their own mental image. It's a bit like the way that a radio broadcaster's words are received, encoded, transmitted, decoded, translated back into recognizable language for listeners to understand. This only works because the radio receiver and transmitter both operate with the same rules to encode and decode different signals. If they used different codes or mixed up the signals at the other end, the final result wouldn't make sense. So whenever we use language or pictures to symbolize our meaning, we're also providing other people with an insight into the way that our thoughts are structured and ordered. Problems with this sort of structure are known as thought disorders. They're the problems with the way that our thoughts are ordered that mean our message or intention can become lost in translation. Thought disorders then are problems with how we think, not with what we think. Like most symptoms of mental disorder, it's useful to think of them in the light of the stress and vulnerability model. Without dismissing the role of brain and body chemistry, we can all appreciate the effect of different kinds of stresses on thought disorders. The most obvious one, according to my mind, is the effect of tiredness on thought disorder. The more exhausted a person becomes, the harder it is for them to organize their sentences, to understand what others might be saying to them, or to remember particular words. These are all mild types of thought disorder. Equally, anxiety can prevent us from thinking effectively. In truth, that's what the freeze, flight or fight response we see in anxiety and anger is supposed to do. It evolved that way to divert much of the brain's blood supply temporarily to the large muscles of the body in readiness for fast running or hard fighting. The more anxious or angry we become then, the harder it is to think straight. Chemical stresses such as infection or substance misuse can also affect thinking. In fact, many people argue that increasing thought disorder is a common side effect of some antipsychotic medications, especially the older, typical antipsychotics. This isn't so surprising given that they're tranquilizers that are used to calm both thoughts and emotions. The thought disorder known as poverty of thought has been said to result from overuse of antipsychotics in some people. This is all the more unfortunate since it may then be seen as evidence of worsening psychosis, thus leading to even greater doses of the tranquilizing medication that caused it. I should stress, though, that prescribers vary, as do medications and their effects. Many psychiatrists are very well aware of the possibility of drug-induced thought disorder and see this as a reason to reduce medication or change drug type. I want to be very clear here. All medications can have unwanted effects, but this isn't an anti-medication video, simply an attempt to show both sides of a very vehement argument. There is enough positive evidence of success with antipsychotics to prevent me arguing against their use in every case. In the context of thought disorder, there is an argument to use them cautiously, but not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. However caused, thought disorders can give us a fascinating insight into the mind of psychotic individuals. Keep watch for evidence of word loss, alogia, nominal aphasia, mixed-up sentences, word salad, thoughts that go off at a tangent, night-smooth thinking, flight of ideas, loosening of association, or even lack of thought, poverty of thought, thought withdrawal. These provide us with clues to the level of psychosis a person may experience, as well as a baseline to compare progress or deterioration. I make no apology for using the words progress and deterioration here. It's become politically correct in some circles to define all forms of psychosis as positive but simply different. I can sympathise with this to an extent, but not in terms of thought disorder. There is nothing positive about losing the ability to think coherently, however much we might like to apply inclusive language and politically correct middle-class sensibilities. Thought disorders can be extremely debilitating and distressing. A quick review of the writings and drawings of thought-disordered individuals makes this point extremely well. There are many examples of this on the internet, but sadly, most of them seem to be the work of famous serial killers and cult leaders. This is understandable, as they're the people in the public eye, but it's also very misleading. The majority of people with psychosis of any form are far from serial killers. Indeed, the greater the thought disorder, the less likely a person would be to do anything very much. They'd find it too difficult to organise their actions when they can't even organise their own thoughts. However, unusual though they may be, the often scrawled rantings and bizarre etchings of such people provide a fascinating, publicly available insight into the experience of thought disorders. From grotesquely drawn, disjointed animals and demons to written sentences that seem to flit from topic to topic, clause to clause, without any coherence at all, the confusion is there for all to see. So very often is the distress. These last few videos have covered the basics of psychosis and, by extension, the primary symptoms of psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. In later videos, we'll consider ways to help people experiencing psychosis, if indeed they need our help. Many are quite capable of finding a place in the world without any interference from us, and that's okay too. If they're happy and coping, that's about as well as any of us can do. It doesn't matter if you or I think they've based their worldview on a delusion. As I said in part 1 of this little mini-series on psychosis, who cares what I think? I'm Stuart Sorensen. You can find me at www.mindthecaretraining.com. Please, feel free, go over there, have a look around. But before you do, if you found this video useful or helpful in any way, please, before you go, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any future videos. It really will help me out a great deal if you do these simple things, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.